Thank you everyone for joining us for today's webinar, How Nonprofits Can Leverage LinkedIn to improve and grow donor relations with Valerie Morris. My name is Lauren Hogan and I'm a marketing specialist here at JMT. And we're very excited to have Valerie, designer and owner of Tintero Creative, presenting our webinar for us today. So just a couple of housekeeping notes before I turn it over to her. If you have any questions, we'll save them all until the end, but don't hesitate to submit them through the Q&A as they come. Also, we'll send out a recording of today's webinar along with the slides and Valerie's contact information within 24 hours after this webinar has concluded. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Valerie.
Hi there. Thanks so much. I'm really excited to be able to share with everyone today. Just looking in the attendees, I recognize a few names. So just real quick, I think it would be a fun exercise. If you want to throw in the chat where you are listening in from, that would be really interesting because I do know that we have even some international folks calling in here or listening in here today. So thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Valerie Morris. I live just outside of the Denver area in Colorado, and I am currently on the board for a nonprofit and ministry here in our town, in our county. And I've gotten to work with a number of nonprofits through my work with my digital marketing agency. I started my agency about 9 years ago, and didn't plan to work exclusively with nonprofits, and I still don't. But over the years, I've learned a lot, and a lot of my experience with for-profit has helped me inform what we're doing for nonprofits. And I think a lot of the storytelling that we're doing really lends itself well on social media. In my opinion, nonprofits can really get away with a lot of let's just say organic exposure on social media that a lot of for-profit organizations that don't have that mission behind them really covet because it's harder for them to get people to engage with them on social media. So just keep that in mind. With that, I'm going to pop over to my presentation. So just bear with me for one moment while I make the switch here and we'll get going. So today, we're talking essentially about relationship building, whether that's with your donors or with your other staff members or other folks who are just volunteering. We want to leverage LinkedIn and ultimately your online presence to build strategic relationships that are going to ultimately impact your mission's bottom line. And for you, that might be, hey, I need more people involved, or I need more dollars coming in. But I think, whatever your goal is, that's going to be your bottom line, right? And you are the only one that can really determine that. So I told you a little bit about me, just that I'm on a board myself. I've worked with a number of nonprofits over the years with my digital marketing agency. And honestly, I just find myself being just a philanthropist at heart. I connect with so many different nonprofits, and I just love seeing people out doing good in the community. So this is really fun for me to be partnering with JMT today to put this on, because ultimately I think this is going to help you guys get your message out in a more effective way. And then just a little bit about me. I said I live in Colorado. I'm originally from the Chicago area, grew up there until I was out of college. And then I've been out in Colorado pretty much ever since. And my husband and I, we have I'll call it a hobby farm. We have goats that look like this shaggy creature here you see with the eclipse glasses from a few years ago. And we kind of balance out this very hyper-connected life by day with our jobs and working to be disconnected at night. So we've got goats, we've got chickens, we've got bees, and they add a certain level of stress and interest to our lives. So, but it's really fun to do some of that kind of stuff. So, but let's dive into what we're here to talk about today, which is social media ultimately. We're going to be talking more in depth about LinkedIn, but I think, social media has had kind of a bad rap in the last few years. It's been kind of a toxic environment. I think we can all agree on that, between politics and just life events, different things going on in the community. Um, there's safety concerns. People are always concerned about their privacy and giving away too much information. And then, personally, we also can find that it's an addictive space. Like, oh, I'm spending too much time on social media. And so we kind of get this, there's a tension we live in, right? Where social media, we know it's got this potential, but it's got this bad reputation. And I'd really love for us to shift our minds, and focus on the opportunities instead, because social media allows us a immense opportunity for greater connection. Um, like I mentioned, I saw a friend of mine here that I shared this webinar link with. He's calling in from South America. I'm able to build relationships with people all over the world because of this platform. And I think that's a huge opportunity when you consider how you need to grow your nonprofit. People are on the platforms. These platforms are not going away, and more people are on them, and more people by the day, just considering everything we're dealing with kind of the ripple effect of COVID-19. We saw this huge just flux of, social media was our main outlet space for being able to connect with people. And for many people, it still is. And those habits aren't going away. People are still, even if things are starting to get back to in real life for many people, they're still relying on digital platforms. And then especially LinkedIn, it is more than just a resume. It's amazing to me. I still come across a lot of people who ask me like, oh, well, LinkedIn's just for, if you're looking for a new job. And it is so much more than that. So I want us to just shift our minds and think about social media, and specifically LinkedIn, from this perspective. I want you to also think about it just being a starting point. It is an opportunity for you to open new doors with new people. And sometimes people come to social media with this perspective that, it's the silver bullet. It's going to do everything for me. I'm going to make one tweet and it is going to change our nonprofit. And the reality is that social media posts and social media interaction is often just the little bit of a seed that's going to open the door for future conversations. Most of the magic happens in person, whether you are on a Zoom call, you're on a phone call, you're in real life with someone. But that conversation may have started with a simple social media post or simple social media interaction. So I want you to shift that perspective a little bit and not think that, oh, just because I posted something or because I have an awesome LinkedIn profile, that this is going to do all the work for me. You still have to do the development work. You still have to engage relationships, but you can use LinkedIn as a tool. Okay. It's a great place to also nurture relationships. So what I love about it is it's a place where I can stay consistent with my people, and I can also meet new people. So it's not just opening doors, but it's allowing me to nurture relationships. One thing I will mention, and this is talking about hashtags, which are, a little bit more relevant over on Instagram. Not that they're, irrelevant on LinkedIn, but, when you take a look at what people are what they are talking about on social media, it can inform what you're doing. And so what I love about kind of doing that social listening exercise is it gives us an opportunity to know what to talk about. It gives us a chance to get in their heads a little bit. If people are using hashtags that kind of allude to a struggle in their life or a need that they're putting out there, we can lean into that. And when we are coming from a perspective of a nonprofit where we meet certain needs, I think that exercise of paying attention to what's going on in the conversations around you can really be helpful. Okay, so a couple other things that we want to make sure of. is, first of all, social media is not ever going to replace relationships. You know, we want to use social media as a tool, but we are not going to use it as a crutch. Okay, tools allow us to do a job more effectively, but we still have to do the work, right? So, we can use social media, we can use LinkedIn to make our jobs a little bit easier, work a little bit smarter, a little less hard. Um, but they're not ever going to replace that personal interaction that you can do with an individual. They're not going to intuitively know what that other person needs, how to best engage with them. You ultimately are going to know that, but lean into what you can learn using LinkedIn. It can help you out immensely. So, we're going to start with one of the foundational things with LinkedIn is ultimately getting your profile in a great spot. Because before you start doing any sort of engagement, any sort of posting, if you start being proactive on LinkedIn in any way, you want to make sure that you are set up and you're equipped to look the best as possible. So that starts with a solid profile. A lot of people try to jump the gun. They start making connection requests with people. It's really best if you get your profile at least looking, I'm going to say 90%, there. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can change as you go, but get it at least in a decent spot. That starts with a good profile photo. That starts with a good cover photo, which is that horizontal band at the very top of your profile. And while you can't put text in there, you can create an image that has text as part of the image. And so, what a lot of people will do is they will get strategic about what that image has written on it. And then they upload that image. So, in a split second, when somebody goes to your profile, between your photo, which they can see your bright, shiny face, and then your cover photo, they should be able to get a split second understanding of what you're all about. And so for a lot of people, that might be as simple as just putting your logo up there. Maybe you're putting a strategic photo from what your organization does. Maybe you're creating like a full-on branded band of photos with a collage. I've seen all sorts of things. And honestly, if you start paying attention to your own connections and what they have on their profiles, you'll get a few ideas of different things that you could try. And just remember, you can always change it. If you don't like what you put up there, you can always change it. Then the other thing is links. One of the things that I see people forgetting a lot is that you can add URL links within your profile. So, if you have a really great video that your organization created that talks about what you do, put that in with your current role. Put that in the summary section, the about section at the top. Make sure you are linking out to your website. This is low-hanging fruit for so many people when somebody might be checking out your profile and they want to know maybe how to donate. Putting that donate link in your profile just makes it that much easier compared to making somebody work to find the link to donate. And I can't tell you how many nonprofits I've come across where it is near impossible to find how to donate to that specific organization. So just make it easy for people. The about section is then perhaps one of the most underutilized sections. And that's going to be the section right underneath your profile photo, right underneath where it says what your current role is, where you live, some of the basic information. It's a section where you can have like a paragraph. And in that, it's a great spot, especially if your experience is very diverse. You have a chance to tie all of the strings together and weave a story about how your past experience leans into what you're doing now. It's an opportunity for you to kind of drop hints at what your organization is all about, what your role is within that organization. It's just a chance for you to kind of tell a story, if you will. It's almost like maybe a miniature cover letter to your resume, where you're telling someone, hey, I have an architecture degree and I worked in architecture for a few years, but here's how I actually am using that today in marketing and how it got me into doing marketing. And I'll tell you, that's my background. I originally was an architect major. I worked in architecture for a few years and I made a pivot. And so for me, if someone was looking at me for a marketing job, they might be like, why would I hire this person with an architecture degree? But because I can paint the picture and explain all of the design background that goes into a degree like that in the about section, it can help immediately shift someone's mind of like, oh, yeah, she's got those complementary skills that would be great in this role. Now, you guys might not be out job searching, but at the same time, it's a great spot if you are in any sort of development role. Frankly, if you're on staff, you're in a development role. Everyone in your organization is an ambassador. It's a great spot to just drop a few little nuggets for people because they may not read down your full profile. They might read just that about section. It's such great real estate in the profile. And then another simple thing is just make sure you have all your contact info easy. If you're okay with giving out your phone number, throw your phone number in your profile. If you're okay with throwing your email address out there, put it in your about section, put it on there so that it's easy for people to connect with you. Of course, people can always send you a message on LinkedIn. If you're like me and you get messages on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and all the places, sometimes it's easier for me just to put my info@tinterocreative.com email in there so that me or my admin can help kind of field any emails that come in. For me, I'm okay with that. You have to be comfortable with, where you're coming from with that. Okay, so you've cleaned up your profile. Then you can go out and build strategic connections. So these are all some different basic activities that you can be doing to kind of get the wheels moving on LinkedIn. So you clean up your profile. Great. You're ready to rock and roll. Then go out and build strategic connections. And I'm a big fan of this. Last I looked, you can have 35,000 connections on LinkedIn. That's a lot of people. I wouldn't recommend having that many, but you could, okay? And so the reason that connections are important is that the more connections you have, the more when you post, you have the potential to get your information out to a broader audience. So I say this to people like real estate agents, for example, is go connect with other find people like sorry, hold on one second, my mouse. Shoot. All right, well, I pulled up the chat because I was getting distracted, but I can't get it away. Anyways, we'll keep going. Okay, so real estate agents, you need to be connected with mortgage brokers. So you could go do a search for mortgage broker or title lenders, or anybody else who refers you business, and you could go connect with specific people in those roles. So then your audience, your connections is largely people who are going to potentially send you business. I want you to think about this from the nonprofit standpoint. Who are the strategic people for you to know in your community? Board members, staff members. In our case, with Young Life, where I'm on the board for, it's, parents, business owners in the community, other people that are connected to that organization. What I love about this is it's building up this network, and LinkedIn is one of the only places, at least on the personal profile, where you have the full capability of kind of crafting who your audience is. Because if you proactively go connect with people, most of the time they're going to respond yes. Okay. Sometimes people just don't pay attention to LinkedIn. Sometimes they're like, I don't know who you are, so they won't connect. But what I found is 90% of the time, people say yes. So build those strategic connections. And then this is a huge piece, post regularly. But, try not to be obnoxious about it, right? You don't want to be posting too much to where people are like, oh, I need to hit unfollow, right? but post regularly. And what I've seen with a lot of nonprofits is if you post on your personal profile once a week, that can be so strategic. Just posting once a week and just having that regular cadence allows you to kind of cut through the algorithm on a regular basis. I know some folks, they post daily, Monday through Friday. And that's great. If you have the ability to keep up with that, that's wonderful. 5 times a day, I'd say maybe go put your efforts over on Twitter. But on LinkedIn, you can get away with that. And then I recommend posting about your mission and not necessarily your personal life. I think a lot of us kind of intuitively know that, um, you know, it's not necessarily the place to be posting, pictures of your cat or, what you ate for breakfast on a Saturday morning at brunch. We all kind of know that there's kind of a level of professionalism that is important to have on LinkedIn. And I think if you focus more on the big picture of sharing the missions story and what you are doing to connect with your organization's mission, it's going to go a long way. One of the other things that I wanted to point out here is, commenting is super important. And you can see here, I included this screenshot of a friend of mine who, he just shared a picture about the mission of what they're doing. And you can see here, this person, somebody he knows, said, "Hey, I want to talk to you and connect personally." Now, this doesn't happen all the time, but it obviously can happen. So be ready to watch those comments for if you're sharing the story of what you're doing regularly, people are going to be interested. Another thing that you can do is with LinkedIn, and I think is important for nonprofits, is to leverage personal messages. And, LinkedIn has been really good for many, many years. In recent years, it's become a little bit more of a spammy space. Um, whoops, it's a little bit of a hit or miss of whether it's going to be a relevant message that comes through for you. But I want to make sure that we understand that personal messages have a huge importance there. It's a great way to connect with people one-on-one, and it's simple things you can do. Wish people a happy birthday. When LinkedIn tells you it's somebody's birthday, go send them a personal message. It's amazing how that simple thing that feels maybe a little generic can go a long way. And it opens the door for the conversation to go further and ask them, how are you doing? What's new in your world? How can we support you better? Blah, blah, blah. You can keep the conversation going, but those birthday messages or work milestones are a great opportunity to at least start the conversation. Another thing I like to think about is there a relevant question that I could be asking somebody to get a conversation started? Obviously, I don't want to be obnoxious, but if I have a legitimate question that they might be able to help me with, maybe I go start the conversation. Connecting people. I had somebody do this the other day. They said, "Hey, Valerie's part of such and such group. You might be interested in this professional organization as well." And a friend of mine started a 3-way message with me and another person. And it's just a great way for my friend not only to stay top of mind for me, but for me to meet somebody else. So, and actually help support this other person. What I love about LinkedIn is that it's an opportunity, right? And so if you can take that conversation to email or phone or something else, try to do that. If you're like me, you live and die by your email inbox. I feel bad. I discovered this morning I've got some text messages that I didn't respond to soon, like right away. And the same thing happens sometimes with LinkedIn messages and with Facebook messages. So if you know yourself and hey, I can stay on top of these, great. Otherwise, try to get it to email. And what I love about that too is then you have that person's email address. So you can maybe, with their permission, or if it's relevant, add them to an email list, invite them to a fundraiser you have. You're not reliant on LinkedIn only to communicate with them if you can somehow get the conversation over to email. And then offer up a virtual coffee. I think one of the biggest things is, with COVID, virtual coffees are very acceptable now. And we can jump in and do that with people, and they don't feel weirded out. They don't feel like that's a strange thing to do. And LinkedIn is a great stepping stone to say, hey, I'd love to learn more about what you're doing with XYZ. Would you be up for doing like a virtual Zoom coffee or something like that for 20, 30 minutes, and just see what people say. It's a great way to open up those doors. All right. So if you are posting on a regular basis, here are some tips. Consistency is number one. If you cannot commit to posting 5 times a week for the next year, you shouldn't do it. I would rather see you post 1 time a month for 12 months in a row than try to post 5 days a week and then fail after week 2. Start with something small and attainable. And then focus on storytelling. You don't have to ask for a donation in every post, or honestly, I very rarely push a direct campaign. Most of the time, I'm focused on storytelling with our nonprofits. Because if you can tell the story with people, then when you make the personal ask for them to become a donor or to come to a fundraiser, they already know that the funds that that you are asking for are getting put to good use. Show your personality. I think your tone, the way you write things, your spin on things is important. And as much as you can show that, do it. Talk about results. Share stats of the impact that you are making. Share the impact that is happening around you. Talk to people about the results. Talk to people about what you are actively doing and spell it out for people. Between storytelling and the results, I think it's important to note that a lot of people get messages and impressions on so many things. I would need to look up the latest stat, but I mean, it's like an insane amount of information we all consume in a given day. To assume that people remember and understand all of the different services that you offer on a regular basis is impossible. Even people that have been supporting you for years need reminders about who you are, what you do, and the impact you make, because they are getting told that by so many other people around the world in a given day. They need reminders. And so just keep that in mind. You can never be repetitive enough. Okay, maybe you can, but for most people, you're never going to be repetitive enough. Okay. Celebrating others is a really simple way to be putting a post out there and to be highlighting or celebrating something without being like, oh, look at us, we're so amazing. Highlighting different people who are doing cool things for your organization, different volunteers, spotlighting volunteers, talking about people who maybe different grants or foundations that have ponied up matching dollars for a campaign, and talking about some of the good that organization is doing. In this case, here, this screenshot, I mean, we're celebrating the fact that this local Jersey Mike's franchise owner has built up a whole campaign to take some of his profits to help support a specific program. One, it tells a story of what we're doing. 2, it features somebody else. It's just a win-win both ways. And then gratitude. This is an easy one. I mean, for nonprofits, just thanking people can be a simple way to reference something that you're doing, showing that you're grateful, and again, having a reason to get in front of them on their news feed. And then I put this at the bottom, the occasional ask. In content marketing, we talk about kind of an 80-20 rule of like 80% needs to be educational, providing value, giving away something to your audience. And then 20% can be salesy. With nonprofits, you can get away with that ratio. On LinkedIn, I'd recommend maybe trying 90-10. I just think it levels up the professionalism when you are engaging publicly, at least you are engaging and you're sharing the story. And then very rarely you do those asks, if any. Some people, the ask only comes on the personal relationship, and they're using social media just to pay attention to who are these 98 people who engaged with this post and the 20 people who commented. Those are the people that you might want to keep on your radar to engage with on a personal one-on-one level with a private message. It's just something to think about. All right, so how do we be consistent with our pace here? Okay, I recommend having a cadence. So put together some sort of pattern of like, hey, we're going to do a gratitude post every third week of the month. We are going to talk about this, our 4 core services. We're going to touch on one each week of the month. We're going to do a volunteer spotlight every second Tuesday of the month. Figure out a cadence for the types of posts you might do. And then you can start infilling the actual unique content for those individual posts once you know what they are. Then I recommend scheduling ahead of time. There's a lot of tools out there. If you just do a Google search for social media scheduler, you will come across things like Hootsuite, Buffer. Those are kind of the 2 big ones with a lot of nonprofits from the beginning. I personally like to use a tool called Agora Pulse, which has been great because I have a lot of profiles that I'm having to kind of manage. You might also see if there's someone like me in your area who has access to a tool. I know, like within my community, the area that I'm in, the organization I'm on a board for, I have access. I give that as part of my kind of giving back. I've given them access to use my scheduling tool. And so when you use a scheduling tool, it allows you to sit down and maybe think for once a month, once a quarter. Sometimes if you have a lot of content that is relevant at any point, I call that evergreen content. If you have a lot of evergreen content, I've had some nonprofits sit and map out a solid 6 months worth of educational posts. And then the real-time posts kind of get infilled on top of that, like the cherry on top. So schedule ahead, because then you are really only thinking about your social media marketing campaigns or activities a few chunks of time. And you can get really strategic about, oh gosh, we talked about our volunteers too much. We need to talk about our impact more, or I need to make sure that I'm being well-rounded in how I'm talking about the different services we offer. When you do it all in one big chunk, it allows you to kind of see, oh goodness, like I really am talking about, XYZ way too much, when what we really need to be talking about is this other service over here. And because it's not as sexy of a topic, I just don't want to talk about it very much. Well, when you sit and do it in like a block of time, it allows you to really kind of focus and see that high level. And then block out the time. I mean, literally go to your calendar and block out an hour or two to sit and think and create your social media content. If you can do that on a regular basis, it is going to make a world of difference. Or on the flip side, if you're just wanting to start with engagement on LinkedIn, you're just wanting to go build some connections, you're just wanting to look at some comments for people, send birthday messages, block out 10 minutes in the morning every day for you to go on LinkedIn and do that connecting. It will make a big difference because, as you and I both know, time goes by fast. And so if we don't protect that time, we won't be able to do anything with it. All right, so then I want you to be part of the conversation. And I've alluded to this a little bit, but a huge piece of this is you might never create your own posts. You might only go and engage with what other people are doing. So somebody shares a post about them winning an award at work. You want to make sure that your face and name pops up with them regularly. So when you ask them out for coffee, they know exactly who you are. They feel like you like them. Go say congratulations as a comment on that post. But if you post comments or if you post content on a regular basis and somebody comments on your post, go ahead and reply back to that comment. And it could be simple as on the screenshot. Good to see your face and glad you are healthy. Bless you. I mean, just, hey, great to see your face. Hope you're doing well. You could put some simple comments to comment back. And I will mention that the more you comment and the more you get comments on posts, the more LinkedIn is going to push that post to other people and increase its exposure. So if a lot of people start commenting on your post about, some story you share about your organization, reply to those comments, because then it's going to help the organic exposure for that post as well. And then, like I was mentioning, comment on other people's posts. That's going to be another way to get your face and name in front of them. And after a while, they might be like, gosh, why does this Valerie person like engage with my stuff so much? Let me go see what she's all about. They will go check out your profile. And I'm sure we've all experienced this where LinkedIn tells you, oh, 3 people viewed your profile recently. It's kind of a drug. Like, we want to see, who are these people that are looking at my profile, right? The more you're looking at other people's profiles, they might be like, well, who is Valerie? Let me go see who she is and check out her profile. And then the other thing is engage with groups. LinkedIn groups are not nearly as engaging and as interactive as Facebook groups are, but they still, if you are in a very kind of niche topic, they can be so effective for you to get exposure and to just get your name out there. Okay, so I also want to mention a couple of things because this is kind of fun. This is very similar. I'll just say this. Shiny objects in regards to social media can be so effective. And so essentially what I mean by that is, when a social media platform puts a new tool out there, they will reward you with more organic growth. Now, this is not a hard and fast rule. You probably will not see this published by Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, but this is what I've seen in the last 9 to 10, honestly, I've been in the industry now for almost 12, 13 years. Since Facebook began as a business tool, the new tools, they will give more organic growth to. So when stories came out, when live video came out, Facebook, Twitter, they all want you to use their new feature. So you can reach more people than you can by just posting a text post with no picture, or just a static post with a picture and some text. But if you went live video, well, then you can reach way more people. So on LinkedIn, one of the things I've been finding is polls work really well lately. That's a newer tool or newer capability that you can do. And I've done a lot of polls recently, and those have helped me reach new people in my audience that don't normally see my posts. And my profile views for my LinkedIn profile have gone way increased just from doing polls. Video. Now, not everyone has access to live video, so that's why I put it as like, if it's possible for you. But worst case scenario, you just post a pre-recorded video, and video helps you get even more exposure than just posting a photo or sharing a YouTube link. But if you upload the actual MP4 file to a LinkedIn post, it can really help you out. But here on this screenshot, you can see there's some other things like upload document, celebrate occasion, offer up help. Play around with what these tools are and look like, and see if there are opportunities for, within your messaging, ways that you could kind of leverage those and play with them. And I put in more ... because, these tools are changing constantly. This screenshot is going to be outdated here in a few months, because there's going to be some new way that LinkedIn wants us to create content on their platform. And just be willing to try out the new thing, whatever that is. Okay, so we saw this slide before, but I want to mention it again. Use this as a starting point. Use LinkedIn as a starting point to build your network, to build your exposure, to get to know new people. Use it to open doors. I know some people who have raised millions of dollars as a result of just a few LinkedIn posts. Now, granted, they've been posting for maybe a year, and maybe one of those posts led to the conversation and the coffee date that ended up being part of the ask to get that $1 million. So we can trace it back to the social post. But did the social post get you the $1 million? No, it was part of the relationship. It was a starting point. If we try to use social media and LinkedIn specifically as like, hey, this is going to be just like, I post it, I'm going to ask people for money, I'm going to be real pushy, we're not going to get anywhere. But if we use it as a relationship building tool in the nonprofit space, it will be amazing. Think about the people who are using LinkedIn. You know, is the person working at the fast food joint down the street, do they have a LinkedIn profile? Probably not. The people working minimum wage that may not have discretionary income to support your nonprofit, may not have the time capacity to support your nonprofit. A lot of them are not on LinkedIn. They're over on other social media platforms. Now think about people, take a look at maybe the professions of the people in your nonprofit who are donors, who are your volunteers. Look at their job roles and think about, are those people on LinkedIn? I would bet money that they are. And that's part of why I love LinkedIn for nonprofits. Your professional network that are taking things seriously. And when you present needs, when you connect with them, they are taking you seriously. It's a huge opportunity. Don't miss out on LinkedIn. It's a great starting point for your organization. And if you treat it as such, it could be a huge tool for you. Okay, so we covered a lot here. I actually just discovered a really cool resource yesterday. I need to add it to this document. But if you want to get a resource here, this is my Tools of the Trade document. It is a live Google Doc that I update regularly when I come across new tools. Some of them are for LinkedIn, some of them are for podcasting or social media scheduling or things like this. What program am I using to collect people signing up for something, to be able to text to sign up? A lot of these different types of digital resources, if you have any interest in getting that, it is a free resource that I built for myself that I am sharing with people for free. So if you want that, go ahead and text 66866 with my name, and you will get opted in to get that. If you want to opt out later, you're more than welcome to. But you will have access to that document with all of the resources that I've got on there now, and then all of the ones that I discover as I'm doing digital marketing day in and day out. So it's a super cool resource. I actually built it not just to share with people, but because I needed a way to organize all of the different tools that I was coming across on a day-to-day basis. So for what that's worth, I know Lauren mentioned that you guys will get my contact information, but if you want to contact and connect with me further today or before we leave or before you get that information, feel free to connect with me. You will get this in the slides, so don't feel like you have to scramble to write it down, but if you want to, feel free to. You can find me on social media. You can find my business, which is Tintero Creative. And if you want to check out some of the goats and the chickens and all that, you can find me at Simple Life Vibes on Instagram, and just get to know me on a personal level. I would love to get to know more people. Now, I will pass it over to Lauren real quick and let her let me know if we are jumping to Q&A right now, or if you wanted to tell a little bit about what JMT is offering.
Yeah, so we'll open the floor for the Q&A right now, but as we wait for questions to come in, just have a quick little blurb on JMT. So thank you everyone for attending. If you aren't familiar with JMT Consulting, we are the leading provider of ERP and financial management solutions for nonprofits in the US. We know exactly what organizations like yours require to operate more efficiently, and we've helped over 2,000 clients optimize their systems and processes since 1991. Whether you're looking for a new ERP system, curious about budgeting and planning options, or just want to continue your education through our free online content, we're so glad you found us, and we hope to continue to be a resource for you long after today's webinar. So if you're interested in learning more about us, feel free to go to our website, jmtconsulting.com/resources, where we have all of our past webinars posted and are posting um, pages for our upcoming webinars as well. So looks like we did have a question come through. So obviously LinkedIn is more than just a resume, but how effective is it for job hunting?
Oh gosh. Okay. Yeah. So I've actually come across kind of there's a couple of filters you can say of like, hey, I'm looking to hire or I'm looking for a job. And my sister, I hope she's okay with me telling this. My sister actually just didn't do anything crazy to optimize her profile, but just put that up on there. And she was found by a recruiter, and she ended up getting a really great job in the middle of the pandemic just because she had used that simple tool of saying, I'm looking for a job, I'm open to opportunities. So it is a great tool. One of the other things that I'll also mention is um, people don't always realize that we all have personal brands. And so you never know where your next job is going to come from. And so one of the great things about LinkedIn is that as you're building your network for your nonprofits benefit and whatnot, you're also able to build your relationships and network that could help you for your next big role. So don't discount it as a great tool to build yourself up for your next job. Now, again, it's more than just a resume, and I think the ability to post, the ability to message, the ability to share content, it has really made it more than just a resume. But at the same time, it is very helpful to help you find the next job.
Perfect. We have another question here. How would LinkedIn content be different on what or how I use Facebook for donor contributions?
I think a lot of it could probably be very similar. I think Facebook is going to be a little bit more casual. You might throw in a few more emojis, maybe a few more hashtags that maybe aren't, and I say hashtags in the sense of like, you might throw in a branded hashtag or some hashtag that people aren't really searching for, but it's like hashtag I love my job. Like a lot of people aren't necessarily out searching for that hashtag, or a hashtag with the name of your organization, things that might be specific to you. You can do a little bit more of that on Facebook than you can on LinkedIn. But I think largely a lot of the content could go on personal and your personal Facebook and personal LinkedIn profile. Just keep in mind that the audiences are different. And so you might be pooling from different audiences on the different platforms and the different types of people that you're wanting to talk to. So if, you know, like for us with Young Life, I might be talking to a lot of the parents if I post on Facebook. I might be wanting to talk to a lot of the parents who are making the decisions in the family about whether a kid comes to one of our events or not. Whereas on LinkedIn, I might be talking more to people who are willing to pull out the checkbook and write the check. So keep in mind who you're talking to when you're posting on that platform. It may not change a ton of what you're saying, but it might craft how much attention you put to one platform versus the other. I will also mention, and this isn't as relevant, it depends on how much control you have over your website. Not every organization gives you these tools. But a lot of people can set up Google Analytics, which is a free option, a free tool that Google offers that will help give you information about who's come to your website, where they're coming from. And so I like to use that to see, okay, I've been posting on Facebook and LinkedIn equally over the last 6 months. Where am I getting most of my website traffic? Is from, at least for my social traffic. Is it mostly coming from LinkedIn or mostly coming from Facebook? And that might inform how much I want to post on those platforms in the future. So yes, there are definitely some differences, but I think if you approach them from one, paying attention to who your audience is, and then two, take a look at the analytics later on and see, is my effort on both platforms being equally rewarded, or should I focus more of my effort on one over another?
Okay, great. And then we have another question here. Should I connect with people I haven't met in person?
I get this question a lot. Should you connect with strangers? And I think, you're ultimately the one who's going to have to make that that call about who you connect with and why. In the past, I would say, and I'll still say this, if somebody has a questionable looking profile, as in there's no good profile photo or no profile photo at all, they haven't filled out much information about their profile, so you don't really know much about what they do for a living, what their organization is, what their job is. Or sometimes if they are, maybe they look like they're from somewhere in Asia where companies have been known to have kind of click farms where people are making fake profiles. Sometimes I will question it a little bit more there. I also take a look and see, what is their role? Are they trying to just sell me on something? Sometimes I'll accept them, sometimes I won't. Here's the thing though. If you connect with somebody, worst case scenario, they are just annoying or inappropriate or whatever, and you can unfollow or disconnect with them and you can report them. I've had a few times where people have left really, and in this case, being a female, I've had a few times where males will send a message right after connecting that's just kind of inappropriate, like flirting kind of, which is completely inappropriate on a professional platform like that. I just disconnect and report them. I personally try not to waste time there. Now, that said, I think connecting with people you have not met in person or people you don't know already has huge opportunities. Do you live near them? Are you in a similar industry as them? Do you have something in common? Like you went to the same alma mater? Do you have similar interests where you're both interested in Boys and Girls Club of America and your mentors? Is there some reason that person might be connecting out to you? It's not going to hurt you to build up connections that way. Now, at the same time, think about strategically, back to our real estate example. Are these people the types of people who would help you meet your goals of how you're using LinkedIn? If they're just random people, they may or may not help you out. If they are people in your local area that all come from diverse backgrounds, but they all have the geographic area in common, and your organization is very geolocated and geo-heavy, that would be really beneficial because you're talking about local stuff. So just keep that in mind. The other thing I will mention is that once you hit over 500 connections, your profile starts to just show 500 plus. Whereas if you are 499 or below, it will literally say that number. So if you want to give the perception of, hey, I'm well connected, I use this platform a lot, like I'm a professional here, you can trust me, you might want to aim to get at least 500 connections. Some people care about that, some people don't. But ultimately it becomes your choice as to how many people you want to accept or not accept. And I'll also throw in there, anytime I've had to deal with LinkedIn's customer support, when I've had to block people or when I've had some sort of technical issue, they have been on it. So as opposed to other social media platforms where it's really hard to get answers or a response, I've always had a good experience with LinkedIn support. So if that gives you any sort of comfort there of trying out and just, hey, I'm willing to be open to connecting to new people. I'm using LinkedIn as a connection tool. Most people would connect with people they haven't met quite in person.
Okay, great. Looks like we have just one more question here. Are skills good to list or to endorse others for?
Sure. Okay, so on your profile, you can list out keywords, essentially of skills that you have, whether it's Microsoft Excel or leadership development or donor development, any of that kind of stuff you could put on your profile as a skill. Sometimes on resumes, you'll see people listing out these different skills. I will say the LinkedIn algorithm tends to favor these keywords, if you will, to help you show up more in different search criteria. So if you are wanting to show up in more searches, those keywords are definitely going to help. They're not going to hurt. At the same time, like, LinkedIn will prompt you to give people endorsements for different skills. Like, hey, does Valerie know about social media marketing? And if it's somebody that you haven't met or worked with previously, but you're connected to them on LinkedIn, you might get those prompts and you might be like, oh, gosh, like, I mean, I guess. I usually just ignore them unless it is someone that I know and have worked with. And that's just a personal choice. But the more that people endorse you for those, the more social proof it gives someone else who's maybe scoping you out to work with you on something to say, oh, yeah, well, Valerie does know about social media marketing. She's gotten like 20 endorsements for this one topic. So it can be helpful from that perspective. And then also, we didn't talk about this, but recommendations, they're not as relevant for a nonprofit, but they are an extremely nice thing to give out, especially if you're wanting to kind of get your face in front of certain people, or just be kind to people. You can give essentially a written testimonial of your experience working with that person. And those can be really helpful for people, especially if they're wanting to move up in their career, they're wanting to increase exposure for their business. It's a great thing to give people. And it might open up some doors for you to have more deeper conversations with people or just to solidify some relationships. So leave some recommendations for a few folks here and there. I usually try to do it a couple times a year, go in and give a few different people some recommendations.
Okay, we have one last question that came through. Can I have two different profiles or for different interests? My example, I have a book I promote, which is separate from wanting to do something for my small local nonprofit.
Yeah.
Could it be in the name of the association, or does it have to be my personal name?
I would keep it as one profile. I think you start to confuse people when there's multiple profiles and people start to wonder, is one spam or did somebody get hacked? I think the best way to handle that would be to create two different roles within your one profile, where one is you are the author for XYZ book, and you can mention, describe the book, have a link for the book, and put whenever it published to present. And then you can adjust the order of what your roles appear in. So if you have two jobs that both say, 2015 to present, you can adjust which one you want to show up at the top of the list. And then have your role for the nonprofit. And that summary section is really where you can kind of explain the fact that you work for a nonprofit, but you also are a published writer. And so you can kind of explain those multiple, kind of diverse angles of things. But having two profiles is not something I would recommend.
Okay, well, great. It looks like that's all the questions and almost at time. But thank you so much, Valerie, for your presentation today. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. We hope that you really enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me. It was really fun to share some of this. I'm really passionate about LinkedIn. I've seen it be a great tool for so many people. So I hope many of the people here listening and who are listening to the replay are able to put even just one or two things into play and really make a dent on LinkedIn for themselves.
Perfect. Well, we hope everyone has a great rest of their day, and you'll receive the recording within 24 hours. Thank you, everyone. Bye.